The psychology of success. Voice script. Hey there, friend. Let's talk about something that's been on my mind lately. The psychology of success. You know, we live in a world where everyone's chasing success. But here's the thing. Most people don't really understand what makes someone truly successful. And I'm not just talking about money or fame here. I'm talking about that deep, lasting kind of success that actually makes you feel fulfilled. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let me share with you what I've learned about how our minds work when it comes to achieving our goals and living the life we actually want. First off, let's get one thing straight. Success isn't just about being smart or talented. I mean, sure, those things help, but they're not the whole story. Think about it. You probably know some incredibly smart people who never seem to get anywhere, right? And then, you know others who might not be geniuses, but they somehow always seem to make things happen. The difference? It's all in their psychology. It's about how they think, how they handle setbacks, and most importantly, how they see themselves and their potential. Let me tell you about something called the growth mindset. This concept comes from psychologist Carol Dweck, and it's absolutely game-changing. People with a growth mindset believe that their abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. They see challenges as opportunities to grow, not as threats to their ego. On the flip side, people with a fixed mindset believe that their qualities are carved in stone. They think, I'm either good at this or I'm not. And that's it. When they face a challenge, they see it as a test of their worth rather than a chance to improve. Here's where it gets interesting. Successful people almost always have a growth mindset. They're not afraid to look stupid while they're learning something new. They don't see failure as a reflection of who they are. They see it as information about what they need to work on. I remember reading about a study where they gave kids puzzles to solve. The kids with growth mindsets actually got excited when the puzzles got harder. They were like, oh cool, now I get to learn something new. Meanwhile, the fixed mindset, kids got anxious and wanted to quit. That same pattern shows up in successful adults. They're the ones who volunteer for the challenging projects at work. They're the ones who aren't afraid to start a business even though they might fail. They understand that every failure is just tuition in the university of life. But here's something else that's crucial. Successful people have what I call emotional resilience. Life is going to knock you down. That's not a maybe. That's a guarantee. The question is, how quickly can you get back up, and what do you learn from the experience? Most people, when something goes wrong, they either blame themselves completely or they blame everything else. Neither approach is helpful. Successful people do something different. They take responsibility for what they can control, they learn from what went wrong, and then they move forward. They don't waste time dwelling on things they can't change. Let me give you an example. Say you're trying to start a business and your first attempt fails. The person with low emotional resilience might think, I'm just not cut out for this, and give up forever. Or they might think, the market is rigged. It's impossible for regular people to succeed, and become bitter. But the emotionally resilient person, they ask different questions. They think, okay, what did I learn from this? What would I do differently next time? Who can I talk to who's succeeded in this area? They treat failure like data, not like a verdict on their worth as a person. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise you. The role of self-talk in success. We all have this voice in our heads that's constantly commenting on what we're doing. For most people, this voice is pretty harsh. It's like having a mean critic living in your brain rent-free. Successful people have learned to manage this voice. They've developed what psychologists call positive self-talk. Now, I'm not talking about delusional thinking here. I'm not saying you should tell yourself you're amazing at everything when you're clearly not. That's just setting yourself up for disappointment. What I'm talking about is being your own coach instead of your own worst enemy. Instead of saying, "I'm terrible at this," try saying, "I'm still learning this." Instead of, "I always mess things up," try, "I made a mistake, but I can do better next time." It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. The way you talk to yourself literally shapes your reality. If you're constantly telling yourself you can't do something, guess what? You probably won't even try. But if you talk to yourself like you would encourage a good friend, you'll be amazed at what becomes possible. Here's another key insight. Successful people understand the power of delayed gratification. You've probably heard of the famous marshmallow experiment, right? They gave kids one marshmallow and told them they could eat it now or wait 15 minutes and get 2 marshmallows. The kids who could wait ended up being more successful later in life. But here's what's interesting. It's not just about willpower. The kids who succeeded had strategies. They distracted themselves. They thought about something else. They found ways to make waiting easier. Successful adults do the same thing. They don't just rely on willpower. They set up their environment and their habits to make success more likely. For example, if you want to save money, don't just rely on your willpower to resist spending. Set up automatic transfers to your savings account. If you want to eat healthier, don't keep junk food in your house. Make the good choice the easy choice. Let's talk about goals for a minute, because this is where a lot of people go wrong. Most people set goals that are either too vague or too focused on outcomes they can't control. They say things like, "I want to be rich," or "I want to be famous." The problem is, you can't directly control whether you become rich or famous. There are too many variables outside your control. Successful people set what I call process goals instead of just outcome goals. Instead of saying, "I want to lose 30 pounds," they say, "I'm going to exercise for 30 minutes every day and eat vegetables with every meal." Instead of, "I want to write a best-selling novel," they say, "I'm going to write 500 words every single day." See the difference? Process goals are things you can actually control. And here's the beautiful thing. If you focus on the process, the outcomes usually take care of themselves. This connects to another crucial aspect of the psychology of success, the importance of consistency over intensity. Most people think success comes from big, dramatic actions. They want to find that one secret, that one breakthrough moment that changes everything. But that's not how it usually works. Success is more like compound interest. It's the result of small, consistent actions over time. The person who writes 300 words a day will finish a book faster than the person who writes 3,000 words once a month. The person who saves $50 a week will build wealth faster than the person who saves $1,000 once a year. Successful people understand this. They don't wait for motivation to strike. They build systems and habits that keep them moving forward even when they don't feel like it. They know that motivation gets you started, but habits keep you going. Now, let's address something that holds a lot of people back: the fear of failure. I get it. Nobody likes to fail. It's embarrassing, it's disappointing, and it can be painful. But here's what successful people understand that others don't. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success. Think about any skill you're good at now. I bet you weren't good at it when you started, right? You probably failed at it many times before you got decent. That's just how learning works. You can't become good at something without being bad at it first. But our culture has this weird relationship with failure. We act like it's something to be ashamed of, something to hide. Successful people think about failure completely differently. They see it as feedback. They ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I improve next time?" I love what Michael Jordan said. "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. That's the mindset difference right there. Most people think, if I might fail, I shouldn't even try. Successful people think, if I'm not failing sometimes, I'm not pushing myself hard enough. Let's talk about something else that's really important: the power of visualization and mental rehearsal. Your brain is incredibly powerful. And one of its most amazing features is that it can't always tell the difference between something you've actually experienced and something you vividly imagined. Successful people use this to their advantage. They spend time visualizing their success, but not in a wishy-washy, magical thinking way. They visualize the process. They mentally rehearse handling challenges. They imagine themselves working through difficulties and coming out the other side. For example, if you're preparing for a job interview, don't just hope it goes well. Spend some time visualizing the interview. Imagine walking into the room confidently. Picture yourself answering tough questions calmly and thoughtfully. Rehearse in your mind how you'll handle unexpected questions. This isn't just positive thinking, it's mental preparation. Athletes do this all the time. They visualize their performance over and over again. And when they get into the actual situation, their brain already has a blueprint for success. Here's something else that separates successful people from everyone else. They understand the importance of environment. Your environment shapes your behavior more than you realize. If you're surrounded by negative people who complain all the time, you'll probably become more negative. If you're around people who are constantly learning and growing, you'll be inspired to do the same. Successful people are very intentional about their environment. They choose their friends carefully. They read books instead of just scrolling social media. They listen to podcasts that teach them something instead of just entertainment. They understand that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This doesn't mean you have to cut off all your old friends or anything dramatic like that. But it does mean being intentional about who you're learning from and who you're allowing to influence your thinking. Let me tell you about something called imposter syndrome. This is when you feel like you don't deserve your success, like you're just fooling everyone. And eventually, they're going to figure out that you don't know what you're doing. Almost everyone experiences this, including very successful people. The difference is that successful people don't let imposter syndrome stop them. They feel it, acknowledge it, and then do the work anyway. They understand that feeling like an imposter often just means you're pushing yourself into new territory, which is exactly where you need to be to grow. Here's a secret. Everyone feels like they don't know what they're doing sometimes. The people who look like they have it all figured out, they're just good at moving forward despite uncertainty. They've learned to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now, let's talk about something crucial: the relationship between success and learning. Successful people are lifetime learners. They're always reading, always asking questions, always trying to get better at something. They understand that in a rapidly changing world, the ability to learn and adapt is more valuable than any specific skill. But here's the key. They don't just consume information randomly. They're strategic about their learning. They identify what they need to know to reach their goals, and then they go after that knowledge systematically. They don't just read for entertainment, they read to improve. They also understand the difference between knowing something and applying it. You can read 100 books about swimming, but you won't be a swimmer until you get in the water. Successful people are quick to move from learning to doing. Let's address something that trips up a lot of people: perfectionism. Now, you might think that perfectionism would be helpful for success, but it's actually one of the biggest obstacles. Perfectionists are often so afraid of doing something wrong that they don't do anything at all. Successful people understand that done is better than perfect. They know that you can't edit a blank page, and you can't improve something that doesn't exist. They're willing to put out work that's not perfect because they understand that they can always improve it later. This doesn't mean they have low standards. It means they understand that progress is more important than perfection. They'd rather ship something that's 80% perfect and learn from the feedback than spend months trying to make something 100% perfect and never actually finishing it. Here's another critical insight. Successful people understand the power of focus. In our distracted world, the ability to focus deeply on one thing for an extended period is becoming a superpower. Most people's attention is scattered across a dozen different things, which means they never get really good at anything. Successful people have learned to say no to good opportunities so they can say yes to great ones. They understand that you can do anything, but you can't do everything. They choose fewer things and do them better. This is hard because we live in a culture that celebrates busyness. People wear their packed schedules like badges of honor. But being busy isn't the same as being productive. Successful people focus on results, not activities. Let me tell you about something called mental models. These are frameworks that successful people use to understand the world and make decisions. For example, they might use the 80/20 rule, which says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. This helps them focus on the activities that actually move the needle. Or they might use inversion, which means thinking about what could go wrong instead of just what could go right. This helps them prepare for challenges and avoid obvious mistakes. The point is, successful people don't just wing it. They have systems and frameworks for thinking about problems and making decisions. They've learned from other people's experiences, so they don't have to make all the same mistakes. Now, let's talk about something that's often overlooked: the importance of rest and recovery. Our culture sometimes acts like success means working 24/7, but that's not sustainable. Your brain needs downtime to consolidate what you've learned and come up with creative solutions. Successful people understand this. They take breaks. They get enough sleep. They make time for activities that recharge them. They understand that rest isn't laziness. It's an essential part of peak performance. Think about athletes. They don't train at maximum intensity every single day. They have recovery days built into their training schedule because they know that's when their bodies actually get stronger. The same principle applies to mental performance. Here's something else that's crucial: the ability to handle uncertainty. Life is unpredictable. Markets change, technologies evolve, unexpected opportunities arise. People who need everything to be certain and predictable struggle to succeed in this environment. Successful people have learned to be comfortable with uncertainty. They make decisions with incomplete information. They take calculated risks. They understand that waiting for perfect information often means missing opportunities. This doesn't mean they're reckless. They do their research, they consider the downside, but they don't let uncertainty paralyze them. They've learned to act despite fear and doubt. Let's talk about something that affects everyone: comparison with others. Social media has made this worse than ever. We're constantly seeing highlight reels of other people's lives and comparing them to our behind-the-scenes reality. Successful people have learned to use comparison differently. Instead of comparing themselves to others to feel bad about where they are, they use it for inspiration and learning. When they see someone who's achieved something they want, they ask, "What can I learn from this person? What are they doing that I could adapt for my situation?" They also understand that everyone's path is different. Just because someone else succeeded doing something one way doesn't mean that's the only way or even the best way for you. Here's a big one: the relationship between success and persistence. Most people give up too early. They try something, it doesn't work immediately, so they quit and try something else. Successful people understand that most worthwhile things take time. But here's the key: it's not just about stubborn persistence. it's about intelligent persistence. If something isn't working, successful people ask why. They adapt their approach. They get feedback. They don't just keep doing the same thing over and over expecting different results. They also understand the difference between a temporary setback and a fundamental flaw in their approach. They persist through the setbacks, but pivot when they need to. Let me tell you about something called systems thinking. Most people think in terms of events. This happened, then that happened. Successful people think in terms of systems and patterns. They ask, what are the underlying forces that created this situation? How can I change the system to get different results? For example, if they keep running out of money, they don't just look for ways to make more money. They look at their entire financial system. How much are they spending? On what? What are their money habits? How can they change the system so that saving money becomes automatic? This systems thinking applies to everything: relationships, health, career, you name it. Instead of just reacting to what happens, they try to understand and influence the underlying patterns. Here's something that might surprise you. Successful people are often more willing to admit what they don't know. They're not trying to pretend they have all the answers. They ask questions. They seek advice. They're humble enough to learn from anyone who has something valuable to teach. This is actually a sign of confidence, not weakness. It takes confidence to admit you don't know something. Insecure people feel like they have to pretend they know everything. Now, let's talk about something really important: the role of purpose in success. People who are successful long-term usually have a sense of purpose that goes beyond just personal gain. They're working towards something that matters to them, something that's bigger than themselves. This doesn't mean you have to cure cancer or solve world hunger. Your purpose might be raising great kids, creating beautiful art, or building a business that serves your community well. The key is that it means something to you personally. Purpose is like fuel for persistence. When things get tough, and they will get tough, having a strong sense of purpose helps you keep going. It reminds you why you started and why it's worth pushing through the challenges. Here's another insight. Successful people understand the difference between being reactive and being proactive. Most people are reactive. They respond to whatever happens to them. Someone sends them an email, they respond. Someone asks them to do something, they do it. Their day is determined by external forces. Successful people are more proactive. They decide what they want to accomplish and then take steps to make it happen. They don't just respond to their environment, they try to shape it. This shows up in small ways and big ways. A reactive person might check email first thing in the morning and spend their day responding to whatever came in overnight. A proactive person might block out their most important work for the first few hours of the day when their energy is highest and check email later. Let's talk about something that's absolutely crucial but often ignored: the importance of self-care. I don't just mean bubble baths and spa days. I mean taking care of your physical and mental health so you can perform at your best. Successful people understand that they are their most important asset. If they burn out or get sick, everything else suffers. So they prioritize things like exercise, healthy eating, adequate sleep, and stress management. Not because these things are fun necessarily, but because they enable everything else. They also pay attention to their mental health. They might meditate, keep a journal, or see a therapist. They understand that emotional well-being is just as important as physical health. Here's something else. Successful people are good at managing their energy, not just their time. They pay attention to when they feel most alert and creative, and they try to schedule their most important work for those times. They understand that not all hours are created equal. They also know how to recover their energy. Some people recharge by being alone, others by being with people. Some need physical activity, Others need quiet contemplation. Successful people figure out what works for them and build it into their routine. Now, let's address something that holds a lot of people back: the need for approval from others. Many people are so worried about what others think that they don't take risks or pursue their real goals. They choose what's safe and acceptable over what's meaningful to them. Successful people have learned to care more about their own opinion than others' opinions. This doesn't mean they don't care about people or they're selfish. It means they don't let the fear of judgment stop them from pursuing what matters to them. They've learned that you can't please everyone, and trying to do so is a recipe for mediocrity. They'd rather be respected by some people than liked by everyone. Here's another key insight. Successful people understand the power of small wins. They don't just focus on big, long-term goals. They break those big goals down into smaller pieces and celebrate the progress along the way. This is important psychologically because it keeps your motivation up. If you're only measuring success by whether you've achieved your ultimate goal, you might go months or even years without feeling successful. But if you can celebrate the small victories along the way, you maintain momentum. For example, if your goal is to write a book, you might celebrate finishing the first chapter, then the first draft, then completing your first round of edits. Each of these is a real accomplishment worth acknowledging. Let me tell you about something called compound learning. Just like compound interest, where your money grows exponentially over time, your knowledge and skills can compound too. Each thing you learn makes it easier to learn the next thing. Successful people understand this, so they're always building on what they already know. They look for connections between different areas of knowledge. They apply lessons from one field to challenges in another field. They understand that learning is not just additive, it's multiplicative. Here's something that's really important. Successful people are good at building and maintaining relationships. Success is rarely a solo endeavor. You need other people, mentors, collaborators, customers, supporters. But they don't approach relationships in a manipulative way. They're not just trying to use people to get ahead. They genuinely try to add value to other people's lives. They help others succeed, knowing that it often comes back to benefit them in unexpected ways. They understand that reputation and trust are invaluable assets that take years to build, but can be destroyed quickly. They do what they say they're going to do. They're honest even when it's difficult. They treat people well, even when those people can't do anything for them. Now, let's talk about something that's often misunderstood: the role of luck in success. Yes, luck plays a role. Some people are born into better circumstances than others. Some people are in the right place at the right time. But here's what successful people understand about luck. You can increase your odds of getting lucky. How? By putting yourself in more situations where good things might happen. By meeting more people. By trying more things. By being prepared when opportunities arise. By staying alert to possibilities that others might miss. As the saying goes, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Successful people prepare themselves, and they put themselves in positions where opportunities are more likely to occur. Here's another crucial point. Successful people understand the difference between activity and achievement. It's easy to stay busy without actually accomplishing anything important. Checking email feels productive. Attending meetings feels productive. But neither of these necessarily moves you closer to your goals. Successful people are ruthless about focusing on activities that actually produce results. They ask themselves regularly, is what I'm doing right now the best use of my time? Is this moving me closer to my goals? They're also good at delegating or eliminating activities that don't require their specific skills and attention. They understand that their time is finite and valuable, so they use it strategically. Let me tell you about something called cognitive flexibility. This is the ability to adapt your thinking when circumstances change. The world is changing faster than ever, and rigid thinking is a liability. Successful people stay curious and open-minded. They're willing to change their opinions when presented with new evidence. They don't get so attached to their ideas that they can't see better alternatives. They also understand that what got them to where they are might not be what gets them to where they want to go next. They're willing to evolve their strategies and even their identities as they grow. Here's something that's often overlooked: the importance of saying no. Opportunities are everywhere, and many of them are genuinely good opportunities. But successful people understand that saying yes to one thing means saying no to something else. They've learned to say no to good opportunities so they can say yes to great ones. They understand that focus is a key ingredient in achievement, and you can't focus if you're trying to do everything. This is hard, because saying no can feel like you're missing out. But successful people understand that missing out is inevitable. You can't do everything. The question is whether you're going to miss out randomly or strategically. Now, let's talk about something that's absolutely critical: the ability to recover from setbacks. Everyone faces setbacks. The question is how quickly you can bounce back and what you learn in the process. Successful people have developed what psychologists call resilience. They don't pretend that setbacks don't hurt or that they don't feel disappointed, but they don't stay stuck in those feelings. They process the emotions, extract the lessons, and then focus on moving forward. They also have what I call comeback strategies. They know what they need to do to get their confidence back, to regain their momentum, to refocus on their goals. They might exercise, talk to a mentor, review their past successes, or take on a small challenge they know they can handle. Here's one more thing that's really important. Successful people understand that success is not a destination, it's a process. There's no finish line where you suddenly become successful and then you're done. Success is about continuous growth and contribution. This means they don't put their happiness on hold until they achieve some future goal. They find ways to enjoy the journey. They celebrate progress, not just outcomes. They understand that if you don't learn to be happy along the way, you probably won't be happy when you arrive either. They also understand that success looks different for different people and at different stages of life. What success means to you at 25 might be very different from what it means at 45. They're flexible about their definition of success and willing to evolve it as they grow. So here's what I want you to take away from all this. Success isn't about being perfect or having some special talent that others don't have. It's about developing the right mindset and habits. It's about learning to think and act in ways that move you toward your goals consistently over time. The good news is that all of these psychological factors can be developed. You can learn to have a growth mindset. You can build emotional resilience. You can develop better habits. You can improve your self-talk. None of this is fixed. It's all learnable. The key is to start where you are and focus on making small, consistent improvements. You don't have to change everything overnight. Pick one or two areas from what we've discussed today and work on those. As you get better at those, you can add more. Remember, the psychology of success is really about understanding how your mind works and learning to work with it instead of against it. It's about aligning your thoughts, emotions, and actions with your goals. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally does the things that lead to success. The most successful people aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who have learned to think and act in ways that serve their goals. And that's something any of us can learn to do. So start today. Pick one insight from our conversation and apply it to your life. See what happens. I think you'll be surprised at the difference it makes. Remember, you have more potential than you realize. The question is whether you're going to develop it or let it remain dormant. The choice is yours, and that's actually the most empowering part of all of this. You have more control over your success than you probably think you do. Now, let me share some more insights that I think will really help you on your journey to success. One thing I've noticed about highly successful people is their relationship with discomfort. Most of us try to avoid discomfort at all costs. We want everything to be easy and pleasant. But here's the thing. Growth happens outside your comfort zone. Every skill you've ever developed required you to be uncomfortable while you were learning it. Successful people have learned to embrace discomfort as a sign that they're growing. When they feel that tension, that uncertainty, that "I don't know if I can do this" feeling, they don't run from it. They lean into it. They understand that discomfort is not their enemy, it's their teacher. Think about it this way. If you're lifting weights and it feels easy, you're not getting stronger. You need that resistance, that challenge, to build muscle. The same principle applies to mental and emotional strength. You need challenges to develop resilience, confidence, and capability. This is why successful people often seek out challenges instead of avoiding them. They volunteer for the difficult projects. They take on roles that stretch their abilities. They're not masochists. They just understand that temporary discomfort leads to permanent improvement. Let me tell you about something called meta-learning, learning how to learn. This is becoming increasingly important in our rapidly changing world. The specific skills you have today might not be relevant in 10 years, but the ability to quickly learn new skills will always be valuable. Successful people have developed strategies for learning efficiently. They know how they learn best. Some are visual learners, others learn by doing, others learn by discussing ideas with people. They've figured out their optimal learning environment, their best times for absorbing new information, and their most effective study techniques. They also understand the importance of active learning versus passive learning. Passive learning is just consuming information, reading books, watching videos, listening to podcasts. Active learning involves doing something with that information, teaching it to someone else, applying it to a real problem, or creating something new with it. Here's something that might surprise you. Successful people are often more comfortable with being wrong than average people are. They don't see being wrong as a threat to their identity. They see it as information that helps them get closer to being right. This is huge, because if you're not willing to be wrong, you can't learn very much. You'll stick to what you already know, which means you'll never grow. Successful people are willing to put their ideas out there, get feedback, and adjust based on what they learn. They also ask better questions. Instead of trying to look smart by having all the answers, they try to get smarter by asking good questions. They ask questions like, "What am I missing here? What would someone who disagrees with me say? What's the biggest risk I'm not considering? What would have to be true for this to work?" Now, let's talk about something called systems versus goals. Most people focus entirely on goals. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to make 6 figures. I want to write a book. But successful people focus more on systems, the daily habits and processes that lead to those outcomes. Here's why this matters. Goals are about the results you want to achieve, but systems are about the processes that lead to those results. If you're a writer, your goal might be to write a best-selling book, but your system is writing 500 words every day, reading in your genre regularly, and constantly improving your craft. The beautiful thing about focusing on systems is that you win every day you follow your system, regardless of whether you've achieved your ultimate goal yet. This keeps your motivation high and builds momentum over time. Successful people also understand something called compound consistency. Small actions, repeated consistently over time, create extraordinary results. Most people underestimate what they can achieve in 5 years, but overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year. Think about learning a language. If you study for just 15 minutes a day, that might not seem like much. But over a year, that's about 90 hours of study time. Over 5 years, that's 450 hours. That's enough to become quite proficient in most languages. But most people won't do it because 15 minutes doesn't feel significant. Successful people understand that significance comes from consistency, not from intensity. They'd rather do something small every day than something big once in a while. Let me tell you about the importance of strategic rest. In our hustle culture, rest is often seen as laziness. But successful people understand that rest is strategic. Your brain needs downtime to process information, make connections, and come up with creative solutions. Some of the best ideas come when you're not actively trying to solve a problem. They come in the shower, on walks, during meditation, or just before you fall asleep. This is because your subconscious mind is still working on the problem even when your conscious mind is focused on something else. Successful people build rest into their schedules. They take vacations without feeling guilty. They have hobbies that have nothing to do with their work. They understand that this isn't time wasted. It's an essential part of peak performance. Here's another insight that's really important: the difference between perfectionism and excellence. Perfectionism is about fear of making mistakes, fear of being judged, fear of not being good enough. Excellence is about growth. It's about doing your best work and continuously improving. Perfectionists often get paralyzed because they're so afraid of producing something imperfect. People who strive for excellence understand that done is better than perfect, and that you can always improve something after it exists. Successful people ship their work even when it's not perfect. They get feedback, they iterate, they improve. They understand that perfection is the enemy of progress. This is why some successful people wear the same type of clothes every day, eat similar meals, or have very structured routines. They're not being boring. They're preserving their mental energy for more important decisions. They also use tools and systems to reduce cognitive load. They might use apps to track their habits, templates for common tasks, or checklists for complex processes. Anything they can systematize or automate, they do, so they can focus on the things that require their unique human judgment and creativity. Here's something that's often overlooked: the importance of teaching and mentoring others. Successful people often become teachers and mentors, not just because they want to give back, but because teaching others actually makes them better at what they do. When you teach something, you have to understand it at a deeper level. You have to think about it from different angles and explain it in ways that others can understand. This process often reveals gaps in your own knowledge and helps you see new connections and insights. Successful people also understand that helping others succeed doesn't diminish their own success. In fact, it often enhances it. When you help others achieve their goals, you build a network of people who want to see you succeed too. Now, let me tell you about something called anti-fragility. This concept comes from Nassim Taleb, and it's about systems that get stronger from stress rather than just surviving it. Most people try to build resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks. But successful people often develop anti-fragility, the ability to get stronger from challenges. How do you become anti-fragile? By deliberately exposing yourself to small stresses and challenges so you can handle bigger ones when they come. By learning from every setback. By building redundancy into your life so that no single failure can destroy you. For example, an anti-fragile person might have multiple income streams, so they're not dependent on any single source. They might have diverse skills so they can adapt to changing markets. They might maintain their health and relationships so they have resources to draw on during tough times. Let's talk about the power of strategic thinking versus tactical thinking. Most people spend most of their time in tactical mode, responding to immediate demands, putting out fires, dealing with whatever's urgent. Successful people make time for strategic thinking, stepping back and thinking about the big picture. Strategic thinking involves asking questions like, where do I want to be in 5 years? What are the most important things I could be working on? What are the biggest opportunities I'm not seeing? What are the trends that will shape my industry? How can I position myself to take advantage of future changes? Successful people schedule time for strategic thinking, just like they schedule time for meetings or exercise. They understand that if you don't make time to think strategically, you'll spend all your time reacting tactically. Here's another crucial insight: the importance of optionality. Successful people try to create situations where they have multiple good options rather than being locked into a single path. They understand that the future is uncertain, so flexibility is valuable. This might mean developing skills in multiple areas, so you're not dependent on a single expertise. It might mean saving money, so you have the option to take risks or wait for better opportunities. It might mean building relationships in different industries so you have more career possibilities. The key is to make decisions that keep your options open rather than closing them off, especially early in your career or when you're not sure exactly where you want to end up. Let me tell you about something called the compound effect of reputation. Your reputation is built through thousands of small interactions over time. Every email you send, every meeting you attend, every commitment you make or break contributes to how people perceive you. Successful people understand that reputation is one of their most valuable assets, and they're very intentional about building and protecting it. They do what they say they're going to do. They show up prepared. They treat everyone with respect, regardless of their position or what they can do for them. They also understand that reputation travels faster than ever in our connected world. Word of mouth, online reviews, social media, your reputation can spread quickly, either positively or negatively. Here's something that's really important but often misunderstood: the role of intuition in decision-making. We live in a data-driven world, and analytical thinking is certainly important. But successful people also learn to trust their intuition, especially in areas where they have experience. Intuition isn't magic. It's your brain's way of processing patterns and information that you might not be consciously aware of. If you've been in a field for a while, your intuition is often picking up on subtle cues that your analytical mind might miss. The key is knowing when to trust your intuition and when to rely more heavily on data and analysis. Generally, intuition is more reliable in areas where you have experience and when you need to make decisions quickly. Analysis is better for unfamiliar situations or when you have time to gather and process information thoroughly. Successful people learn to use both analytical thinking and intuition as complementary tools rather than opposing forces. Now, let's talk about something called emotional regulation. This is your ability to manage your emotions rather than being controlled by them. It doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending you don't feel them. It means experiencing them without being overwhelmed by them. Successful people have developed strategies for managing difficult emotions like fear, anger, frustration, or disappointment. They might use techniques like deep breathing, meditation, exercise, or talking to a trusted friend or advisor. They also understand the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is immediate and often emotional. Responding is thoughtful and strategic. When something challenging happens, they give themselves time to process their emotions before deciding how to act. This emotional regulation is especially important in high-stress situations or when dealing with difficult people. The ability to stay calm and think clearly when others are losing their composure is a huge advantage. Here's another key insight. Successful people understand the importance of stakeholder management. No matter what you do, you probably have multiple stakeholders, people who are affected by your work or who can affect your success. These might include your boss, your team members, your customers, your family, your investors, or your community. Successful people are good at understanding what each stakeholder needs and wants, and they try to align their actions with those needs when possible. This doesn't mean trying to please everyone. That's usually impossible. But it does mean being aware of how your decisions affect others and communicating clearly about your intentions and constraints. They also understand that different stakeholders may have conflicting interests, and part of their job is to navigate those conflicts thoughtfully and fairly. Let me tell you about the power of compounding relationships. Just like money can compound over time, relationships can too. The person who's an intern today might be a CEO tomorrow. The colleague who helps you with a small project today might become a key business partner later. Successful people invest in relationships for the long term. They help others even when there's no immediate benefit to them. They stay in touch with people even when they don't need anything. They understand that you never know where opportunities will come from. They're also generous with credit and recognition. They celebrate other successes and acknowledge contributions publicly. This builds goodwill and makes people want to work with them and support them. Here's something that's often overlooked: the importance of cognitive diversity. This means surrounding yourself with people who think differently than you do. It's natural to gravitate toward people who share your perspectives and opinions, but this can create blind spots. Successful people actively seek out different perspectives. They might join groups or organizations where they're in the minority. They might read books by authors they disagree with. They might seek advice from people in different industries or with different backgrounds. This cognitive diversity helps them make better decisions, spot opportunities others miss, and avoid groupthink. It's uncomfortable sometimes, but it's incredibly valuable. Now, let's talk about something called temporal thinking, how you think about time. Most people are heavily focused on the present. They make decisions based on immediate costs and benefits. Successful people are better at balancing short-term and long-term thinking. They're willing to invest time and energy today for benefits that might not materialize for months or years. They think about how their current actions will affect their future selves. They consider not just what's best for them today, but what's best for them over the long haul. This temporal perspective affects everything from career choices to health decisions to financial planning. It's about playing the long game rather than just optimizing for immediate gratification. Here's another crucial skill: scenario planning. Successful people don't just plan for the most likely future. They think about different possible futures and how they would respond to each one. They ask questions like, what if the economy goes into recession? What if new technology disrupts my industry? What if I get a great job offer in another city? What if my biggest customer goes out of business? By thinking through these scenarios in advance, they're better prepared to respond quickly and effectively when change happens. They're not caught off guard because they've already thought about how they would handle different situations. This doesn't mean they're pessimistic or always expecting the worst. It means they're prepared. They understand that change is inevitable, and preparation is better than reaction. Let me tell you about something called energy management over time management. We all get 24 hours in a day, but we don't all have the same energy levels throughout those hours. Successful people pay attention to their energy patterns and try to align their most important work with their peak energy times. Some people are most alert and creative in the morning. Others hit their stride in the evening. Some people can focus for hours at a time. Others work better in shorter bursts. There's no right or wrong pattern, but it's important to know your pattern and work with it rather than against it. Successful people also understand that different types of work require different types of energy. Creative work might require mental energy when you're fresh and alert. Relationship building might require emotional energy when you're feeling social and engaged. Routine tasks might be perfect for when your energy is lower. Here's something that's really important: the ability to zoom in and zoom out. Sometimes you need to focus on the details and execute precisely. Other times you need to step back and look at the big picture to make sure you're heading in the right direction. Successful people are good at both levels of thinking, and they know when each is appropriate. When they're planning, they zoom out to see the overall strategy. When they're executing, they zoom in to focus on the specific actions needed. They also regularly switch between these perspectives. They might spend the morning working on detailed implementation, and the afternoon stepping back to assess whether they're still on track toward their bigger goals. Now, let's talk about something called intelligent quitting. Most people think that successful people never quit, but that's not true. Successful people are actually very good at quitting things that aren't working, so they can focus their energy on things that are. The key is knowing the difference between a temporary setback that you should push through and a fundamental problem that means you should change course. This requires honest self-assessment and often external perspectives. Successful people don't quit at the first sign of difficulty, but they also don't stubbornly persist with something that's clearly not working. They gather information, assess their options, and make strategic decisions about where to invest their time and energy. Here's one final insight I want to share with you: the importance of contribution thinking. While it's natural to focus on what you can get from situations and relationships, successful people also think about what they can contribute. They ask questions like, how can I add value here? What unique skills or perspectives do I bring? How can I make this situation better for everyone involved? This mindset not only makes them more valuable to others, but also makes their work more meaningful to them. When you focus on contribution, success often follows naturally because you become the kind of person that others want to work with, buy from, and support. So there you have it, a comprehensive look at the psychology of success. Remember, none of this happens overnight. Success is about developing these mindsets and habits gradually over time. Pick a few insights that resonate with you and start applying them consistently.